This week's guest on the Waterboys podcast is a returning guest, our good buddy Seth Galina of Pro Football Focus. Right back at it with us for another edition of our podcast. Are you excited for the NFL draft as much as I am and as much as Frank is? Because literally, as we started off the call, the first thing he said was, "I'm excited for the NFL draft."
Yeah. I'm excited to be wrong. If you know what I mean? Like,
yes,
there's nothing after pick 2. We believe we're pretty set on pick 1 and 2, and then after that, everyone has their own opinion on what's going to happen at 3, and then that's going to change everything that happens from pick 3 to 250, whatever. So I have all these ideas in my head that this guy, they're going to do this, and this team's going to do that, and this player is going to do this, and he's going to be good, and whatever. And guess what? None of it's going to happen, and I'm excited for none of it to happen. So I think that's the most fun part of the draft is the unknown.
Here's one question for you off the top, though, before we get really deep into the draft. Mm-hmm. As someone whose job it is to study college football, to study prospects, to study the NFL, does this crunch time for you almost make it like a bother to you at this point? It's like, oh, I can't wait till this is over. It's so much. Or is it like your love for the sport and your love for your job will just never be like, oh, I can't stand this anymore?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm the college football analyst. I'm not like the draft guy. But with that said, I spent the other day like just watching Texas A&M, you know what I mean, on the film, and it's like that's fun. Like I enjoy I'm getting paid to do it. Like I enjoy this so much. So yeah, I'm not big on talent evaluation, not big on that type of stuff, the draft stuff. That's for other people. But with that said, it is part of my job, and I can't complain, man. Honestly, I get to watch, like I said, watching the Canadians the other day, had the iPad going, firing up some Texas A&M, some Kellen Mond tape. I love it. I got no problem.
Kellen Mond, nice. I remember. Former Bulldog from Mississippi State. All good.
Kellen Mond, Texas A&M.
But former Mississippi State. Is he not? Never? Okay, so we're going to scratch this whole thing out.
Dude, I just wanted to know how you feel, and I guess that's a perfect segue into some of the quarterback talk, because there's been a lot on Mac Jones and Justin Fields and Trey Lance, and among other guys who are supposed to be taken in the first few picks of this week's draft. What do you make of all of the reports that one team is looking at one guy and one team's looking at this guy? And I know this happens every year, but there's a lot of smoke screens that are just thrown out about players. How do you feel about that part of the game when it comes to the NFL draft?
Well, it's a game. That's exactly what it is, right? You're trying to throw out smoke screens to pump up other people's values, to lower the value that you have. That if you have a guy really high, you don't want his name out there, so that you can go get him where you'd want to get him, right? So I think that makes it a little fun. And again, it kind of plays back into what I was saying earlier. It makes it so that Thursday night on draft night, we can expect the unexpected. I think that's kind of like the most fun part of the draft. So yeah, I mean, it's tough to sort through all this stuff. To tell you the truth, I kind of don't even believe that the Jets are taking Wilson at 2, even though that is supposedly the pick. I'd say I'm like 80% sure they are. I'm not like 50-50, but still, like, we don't know for sure until the pick is in. I think the only thing we know for sure right now is Trevor Lawrence to the Jags. Other than that, I'm just excited to be, like I said, excited to be wrong.
So why should Zach Wilson go second?
That's what I want to know, Seth, because you've had some. The jury is still out for you on Zach Wilson. One of your most recent articles for PFF says that, obviously some of the matchups he received were favorable in college. Why is it not a clear-cut overall consensus he's the number 2 man this year?
I just think that situation at BYU last year, playing against the competition that they had, it's just you can't find a cushier spot than the BYU offense last year for a quarterback. I don't even know what I went back. I thought about it. Like I just can't think of anyone else, especially for a quarterback that's going to be picked in the first round. The defenses that they played were absolutely abysmal. So, the offensive line that they had was just creaming guys. The running game dominated.
Creaming?
They were creaming them. I'm bringing it back. Okay, we're bringing back creaming and all these 90s terms.
Okay, all right, cool. I just wanted to know what you meant by creaming, so I'm glad you covered that up for us.
I can't explain it on the podcast, and then we'll get
creaming. Just to be clear, you're saying creaming.
Creaming.
Good.
Have you never heard that term before?
Yeah, of course.
Not in a long time.
Okay,
no, I've heard it.
Go.
Yeah, you're not crazy, Seth. Yeah,
I'm gonna say it for every as an adjective for like every person I talk about now. All right, so offensive line
creaming?
Yeah, they were creaming.
Okay, good. Good to
know. Offensive line dominant. Okay, creamingly dominant offensive line, and one of the things that I noticed. So
say it like that. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
You can't tell, but I looked you straight in the Zoom.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
I said it.
Stop being a child. Let's stop being a child. You were saying.
What is a pocket? A pocket, when we think about a pocket for the quarterback, where he does his work, is a U shape, right? Because the two tackles get pushed back, the guards in the center push forward. We have a U shape.
Mm-hmm.
So, quarterback, even if the line is doing its job, it still creates that U shape, and it still like condenses where the quarterback can move. I've never seen an offensive line form an actual wall, like a line that like the BYU offensive line did for Zach Wilson last year. So that allows him to step up in any direction. He doesn't have to worry about bodies around him. The throwing lanes were unbelievable. So that alone, and then so the pocket via the offensive line, the run game via the offensive line, meaning teams had to get their eyes on all sorts of run action, and if they pull the ball and play action, forget about it. And we get really into details of football here, but I think it's something that's interesting is teams played them, and as you go down, this is what I wrote in the article, as you go down the rungs of I don't know what the plural of rung is. As you go down the rungs of the college football teams, you get more and more what we'd say quarters coverage. So 2 safeties deep, cover 4, so 4 deep zone defenders, and they're playing it like that. The higher you go, the more man coverage you get, and man coverage is usually a 1 high safety. So you get cover 3 and you get cover 1. Now, what happens is if you're playing with 1 high safety, whether you're in cover 3 or cover 1, and you get a run action, that deep safety is not part of it. So the 2 corners are not part of it, and the deep safety is not part of it. So you're left with 8 players that are part of the run to fit the run and stop the run. When you play quarters, and especially in the way the teams in the lower levels of college football, which is what BYU played this year, play this quarters coverage, what ends up happening is because the safeties are both splitting the deep responsibility, they're both involved in the run fit. So instead of it being an 8-man run fit, you end up with a 9-man run fit. And now you have to do it because BYU was creaming teams on the ground. And now when you pull the ball on play action, you're getting all sorts of opportunities down the field. And Zach Wilson took advantage of it. So there's that, the offensive line playing into it. And then that plays into the fact that they didn't see a lot of man coverage. Teams were afraid of their big time receivers. Dax Milne is going to get drafted in the 5th round, the 4th round, something like that. Tight end was good. They had really, really tall receivers. And that's another thing. Further you go down in the rungs of college football, the players get smaller. Cornerbacks are smaller. They the 5-stars who are 6'3", 215, who can run a 4.5, whatever, they don't exist anymore. So those BYU receivers are just so much more physically dominant than them. So teams did not want to play man coverage, and playing zone coverage is a lot easier for a quarterback. I should know. I won co-ed division FPF Flag Plus football's quarterback of the year last fall. So I should know these things.
You pulled that card.
I'll tell you,
flex.
I've got a real question for you though. But actually, go ahead, finish your point, Seth. Go for it.
Well, the point is just that I find, and coaching quarterbacks here in Montreal for many years, I find it's really tough for young quarterbacks to always deliver against man coverage, especially if their receiver that they want to throw to is covered. They have a hard time being like, okay, it's not covered. Let me get to my next receiver. When they're young, they think, okay, my receiver's about to get open. Let me hang on to the football. And with zone, you just find the hole in the zone, and that's it. So yeah, that I think Zach Wilson seeing no man coverage this year is very important. He gonna see it in the NFL. Let me tell you,
right?
He's gonna play man in the NFL, especially against whoever the Jets are trotting out a receiver. I know they're signing Galladay,
Denzel Mims.
Other than that, yeah, Denzel Mims. We don't know anything about Denzel Mims. So, anyways, that's my spiel about Zach Wilson.
Here's the question I've got for you to back on that point, right? Like, okay, some people are sold on Zach Wilson. Some people aren't just yet. It's going to take some NFL experience to do that. But, and you mentioned as one of the focal points as being that, okay, BYU didn't see the stiffest of the competition. Why is it that Trey Lance, and you can argue North Dakota State, right? They didn't face the best competition either. Why is it that he's like almost at the same level as Zach and being in contention for the 3rd overall pick? Where does that gap lie? Is it raw? Is it the tangibles? Is it the size, the skill, the speed, the arm strength? Like what? Fill me in on this a bit more.
Because I like him better. Okay.
That's as simple as that.
No, I think the thing with Trey is, it's okay. So all 5 of these quarterbacks who are coming out: Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, and the 2 we're talking about now, Trey Lance and Zach Wilson, all played on the top dogs in whatever conference or division that they played in. So Alabama, best team in the SEC, best team in college football. Ohio State, best in the Big Ten. Clemson in the ACC with Trevor Lawrence. BYU, they're not in a conference, but based on the schedule that they played this year, they were the best in every game by far, like I just said. And North Dakota State with Trey Lance, that's the best team in FCS Division I AA, the old Division I AA. What I see when I watch Trey Lance is less, and they had a great offensive line. 2 things. The receiving core was certainly an FCS receiving core, not in the same vein as the way that the BYU receiving core just dominated those group of 5 teams that they played. North Dakota State's offensive line.
Dylan Radins
is going to get drafted. I think another kid's going to get drafted. I don't forget his name. Maybe next year. That's definitely a Division 1A offensive line. But I still felt like the pockets were different. And you definitely saw Trey Lance when it was collapsing. And again, did it happen all the time? No, because it is a great offensive line. But when things were collapsing, I thought he did a fantastic job of being able to throw with bodies in his face. And that comes out to him having an A arm strength, where I would say Zach Wilson is more B plus in terms of arm strength. So I think that's important.
Really? I've heard all I hear about Zach Wilson is like he's got a cannon.
It's good. It's definitely more than meets an NFL threshold.
But then again, all these guys do, right?
You can't play now without like some sort of hitting that. If you're going to get drafted in the first round, you got to hit that type of threshold, and he does for sure. But you'll see the ball die on him quite a bit more than I think you'd want to. And his receivers. Going back to the BYU stuff, his receivers were a dominant contested catch group, one of the top groups in college football last season. When it was a one-on-one ball, they came up with it more than DB. So anyways, getting back to Trey Lance, I think the main thing is ran an NFL-style offense, was able to go through progressions very, very well. Quick game, which you don't really see in college a lot, but they ran a lot, but you do see in the NFL. He was awesome at, and he's a dynamite runner. I mean, you get him, you go on the whiteboard and you start drawing up all of your quarterback run, Lamar Jackson, Colin Kaepernick, whatever. Like you start drawing that stuff up because he will run them and he will run them great right out of the box. So that's why, and I like his vibe. I vibe with Trey Lance, so that's why he's QB3 and Wilson is QB4 for me.
Well, I want to know now is I know you have the quarterbacks in the order that you might have them, and I know we didn't really give a lot of love to Trevor Lawrence at the start here, but I'm looking at guys like Lawrence who seem dynamic, and Trey Lance as well also fits that mold. Zach Wilson as well, Justin Fields as well. Why is Mac Jones being looked at as the guy at number 3? He won just like a big kind of stocky like quarterback. 1, 2. If we're going to go in on the weapons that Zach Wilson had to deal with at BYU, Alabama was loaded up front. Najee Harris for 1, Devontae Smith, all these guys on his offense that definitely could have helped with some of his stats in the SEC. Why are teams so enamored with Mac Jones?
It's actually an enigma. I know this question was for you, but I want to just chime in on this. It doesn't make any sense. What I want to say here is that I don't think we're here to get at Mac Jones. We're not here to crush him. He's a very good quarterback. But the situation that he finds himself in, and the situation that we as observers see what's circulating around the NFL, is that the San Francisco 49ers have traded all those assets to move up to get someone like that, when in my mind, he's not someone you give up all those assets for as a 3rd overall pick in an NFL draft.
Yeah, he seems like a guy, and I mean, at least some of the earlier mock drafts would suggest that Mac Jones would not necessarily be the guy. Like if you wanted to just wait at like 8 or 9 or whatever, you could get Mac Jones. Like, considering all the other quarterbacks that are there. At what, like, I forget which original pick the Niners had before they traded up here.
12.
If
12.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong here.
That's a big jump.
That's a big jump, but maybe I'm wrong here. The Niners could have stayed at 12 and gotten Mac Jones.
That's a risk. That's a risk.
Maybe it's a risk, you're running a bit of a risk, but to go all the way to 3 to get Mac Jones?
So
3? Anyway.
This is why I don't think it's going to be Mac Jones. Now, I hope it's Mac Jones, because it's hilarious if it's Mac Jones, and I'm into that. But I don't think it's going to be Mac Jones for the reasons you guys just laid out. I don't think you jump up that high for that type of quarterback. Now, Kyle Shanahan is, I don't mean this in a bad way, to tell you the truth. Like, I don't know what other words to use, and I really don't mean this in a bad way, but he's kind of full of himself. He believes in himself. I think that's the main. He believes in himself. He believes in his offense. So he thinks he can go put any quarterback in, and there's a bit of like, hey, I'll go put this bad quarterback in my offense, and I'm going to take it to the Super Bowl. When obviously we know that that's just not sustainable, because we just saw it, right? We just saw it with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, it just doesn't – you just can't – saw it with Garoppolo. We saw it with Goff. You just can't – we might see it with Baker Mayfield next year. You just can't win consistently. You can have one flash in the pan type of year where everything goes right, and the supporting cast is great, and he is such a great offensive play caller that it'll work. I just don't think it's sustainable, which is why, dude, if Fields is there at 3,
oh my god,
I think Fields would be the number 1 overall pick in, let's say Andrew Luck was 2012, so Andrew Luck goes first when we look at 2012. 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. Justin Fields is the first overall quarterback. And he's
even in the year Baker Mayfield gets taken?
100%. For me, 100%. Now, there's hindsight, obviously. And I think when we look at how the Oklahoma quarterbacks have gotten a good base of offensive play calling from Lincoln Riley over these past 4 years, where he's been the head coach. So that it certainly helps now looking back in hindsight. But I think Justin Fields is closer to Trevor Lawrence than any of the other quarterbacks are close to Justin Fields.
That's a great point. It's so clear to me that Justin Fields is QB2 in this year's draft. Yeah. Like it's crazy. It blows my mind. Yeah.
You could even make the argument, and I know I certainly don't want to make the argument, but you could, and I know Frank doesn't want to hear it. But you can make the argument that you would take him above Joe Burrow last year.
I was just going to say that. Let's say if it wasn't Tua Joe last year and it was Tua Justin, I'm like, give me whoever. Not even close. I don't care. Yeah, I'm good with either. I was leaning towards Joe last year just because I think he's superior to Tua. But Justin, he's unreal. I don't get it. I don't get why he's falling. And to the point where it's not even like this guy's one-dimensional. He was one of the most accurate passers in all of college football.
And this is the thing that I think people don't understand is how accurate he's pinpoint, and he has a super strong arm. So it's like, is it a Justin Herbert arm? Is it like A+ like Justin Herbert, Josh Allen type of thing? Probably not, but it's like A-. You know what I mean? It's better than Zach Wilson. It's probably better than Trey Lance. I think one of the things people I'm thinking about this for like a couple months now. When you watch Justin Fields, he's obviously an unbelievable athlete, but would you say he's like this like quick trigger type of athlete? Like in I'm trying to think of a good example. I mean, you think running backs are quick trigger, some receivers are quick trigger, but like quarterbacks, Lamar is a quick trigger athlete, in and out of his cuts so quickly you don't even see him, right? And I think with Fields, he's such a smoother type of athlete, but he'll still run your 4.4, which he did, and he still has an unbelievable arm. But the release is a little slow. It doesn't like come out of his arm like like super fast, like a slingshot, like Trevor Lawrence, like Zach Wilson, like Trey Lance. So I think, and then the running ability, like I said, is smoother. He's not in and out of his cut so fast. He makes people miss and he runs people over. But I think that skews people in one direction, where we think of, if you're an athlete, then you're supposed to be quick twitch. And I don't think he is, but I don't think that's a big deal. I think he's more than good enough at everything he does.
I want to ask a quick follow-up here with regards to keeping with the Niners. Don't know if you saw some of the media availabilities with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, where they were asked about Jimmy Garoppolo's future. Just, we mentioned him a little earlier, and Kyle Shanahan gave like this weird answer saying
it was such a bad answer, man.
On Sunday, it's, hey, we can't even guarantee that everyone's going to be alive on Sunday. What do you think of the fact that the Niners pretty much just up and said that they're not that committed to Jimmy Garoppolo?
If Jimmy Garoppolo is not alive, I don't know how to word this in a way that doesn't get me in trouble. See,
I'm glad you went that way because I thought about that too.
Yeah. Look, all I'm saying is Kyle is the prime suspect because of his words that he put out.
That's such a weird thing
in the universe. I think, look, they're picking a quarterback at 3. We don't know who it is. I think it's going to be Trey Lance actually at 3, and then they're going to cut Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that's what it's going to end up being, and I think that's probably the right move. And they try to
okay. Can I rebuttal that for a second?
Okay.
Because this is just like playing through my mind. Because we know how Kyle Shanahan is. You said he's confident in himself, and Trey Lance doesn't fit the bill of a Kyle Shanahan quarterback. That's why you think it's going to be.
Isn't Justin Fields is a better fit? No.
Well, Mac Jones fits him.
Mac Jones fits like what we think of a
Kyle Shanahan
quarterback Kyle Shanahan. Now you have to say that he was there in Washington with Robert Griffin, and they ran a bunch of stuff that took the NFL by surprise that year in terms of quarterback run stuff. So he can do it. But yeah, a lot of his comments, not just the Garoppolo comment, but a lot of his comments and how he evaluates quarterbacks tells you it's Mac Jones. Now, just take the better quarterback, man. Just take Justin Fields. He's the better quarterback. That's it, period. He's better than both of them. And I like Trey Lance a lot, but he's better than both of them. So just take the better quarterback. And then you don't have to, one of the problems with Garoppolo and Mac Jones and Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard and Brian Hoyer, the quarterbacks that he's had at San Francisco, is if things aren't perfect, if Kyle Shanahan can't make it perfect for you in terms of, hey, just look at this receiver and he'll be open for you. Like if he can't make it perfect for you, then they can't do anything in that offense.
Yeah.
So why not take Justin Fields or Trey Lance, who, if things are not perfect, and they're not going to be perfect, he'll get you out of it because he's super athletic, because he can do everything like that. So to me, it's like I said, to me, just Fields getting past number 2 makes his value skyrocket like crazy. And him getting past 4, I mean, that is insane. Dude, if he goes to like Carolina at 8 or 7, whatever it is.
So that's interesting.
I don't know about Carolina since they have Sam Darnold. I was wondering if the Patriots are going to be trading up at some point, because there's been reports going around that they're likely going to be trading up into the top 10, or at least just trying to get themselves in a position where they can get one of these quarterbacks. I could totally see that. I could see the Broncos as well. I don't think they're that sold on Drew Lock, especially if Justin Fields is still going to be available somehow.
Yeah, so like that's the thing. Like if the 49ers end up trading up for Justin Fields, then whatever they gave up is totally worth it. And then again, whoever ends up trading up to get Justin Fields, it's totally worth it. Like I know you have to give up a lot, But to go get a quarterback like that, it's 100% worth it. And like you said, all of those teams I'm on board with. I thought Philly could have made a play, before they traded back. Now, clearly, you don't trade back and then trade back up for a quarterback. I guess probably not. So I assume it's not them. But yeah, all the teams you mentioned, the Broncos are so close with this roster that they have. Great receiving core, great defense. Offensive line got so much better last year. They just need a quarterback. So trade up and go get the quarterback. Drew Lock is not the guy, I don't think. Carolina, look. They traded for Sam Darnold. I think that was an awful trade. He's not the guy. I'm sorry. He's not the guy.
Okay.
So go get a quarterback. And then New England, obviously it'll depend on how they feel about, you probably want to see Cam another year in that offense before you make a true decision. Though it wasn't great last year. Obviously, COVID in the middle, kind of his play won't just fell off a cliff after he got COVID. So, you'll see, and with all the moves they made in free agency, getting pass catchers, right?
Yeah.
Jonnu and Henry and Aguilar and just all bunch of pass catchers, which they didn't have last year.
Yep.
Is finally putting Cam Newton in an offense. Because look, that offense didn't work with Tom Brady, and we know how good Tom Brady is. So, I don't think there's a lot. We can't really say a lot definitively about Cam Newton after 1 year. But if it's Fields, go get it, right? Like, just go do it. So I think, all those guys, all those teams you mentioned are trade-up candidates for a quarterback in the draft.
Spent a lot of time talking about quarterbacks.
Yeah, let's move on to a different position here.
You just want to talk about receivers now, hey, Frankie?
No, actually, I wanted to talk about O-line, to be honest.
Have you changed your tune on who the Bengals should draft?
So here's
4th overall.
I didn't bring it up for those listening on the record. Okay, I did not. For the record.
Okay.
I wanted to talk to you about O-line. I want to talk about receivers as well, and then we have a couple questions for you that we run towards the end of the episode. But to answer your question is who it goes two ways here. Okay, who it should be, Seth, is it should be Penei Sewell. Who it will be is Jamar Chase. And sorry, go ahead.
You flipped. I feel like you flipped. I feel like you were on board Jamar Chase superfan for a bit.
Well, no. I'm there. What's beautiful about this is
I feel like that's the wrong move.
What?
I think Jamar Chase obviously a good receiver, good receiver, but like go for the O-line here.
No,
Joe Burrow needs that O-line.
I disagree. Here's where
that O-line.
The drop off.
Did you not see the man last year? Did you not see that O-line?
What's funny
Did you not see that meme going around where Joe Burrow is literally running for his life in training camp and the O-line ain't doing nothing for him? He needs an O-line.
It was horrible. It was horrible from the start. And
he literally got injured behind a terrible O-line.
They had one of the most amount of injuries as well. Like, I hate to play that card, but I think they had 10 different O-linemen suit up. And they had one guy, Quinton Spain, start at left guard for them on 2 days' notice or 3 days' notice on this season. So it was bad and it was decimated. So that's an incredible position of need for the Cincinnati Bengals. However, I feel like the drop-off of skill from in the wide receiver position from pick 5 to pick 38 or second round is incredibly higher than that of O-line. And that's why I want to bring up O-line with Seth, is because there's such an incredible amount. Like last year was the depth year at wide receiver, right? Where you can get a guy like T. Higgins. We're talking about the Bengals. Denzel Mims later on. Like, these guys are quality players who were found later on in the draft. It's the same case this year for O-line. And I wanted to bring up a few names because there's obviously the flashier Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater. However, when you look at guys with second round grades, Seth, you look at Alex Leatherwood out of Alabama, Tevin Jenkins, who actually is rising in rankings, but just for the sake of the argument here, Tevin Jenkins, Liam Eichenberg, Landon Dickerson, who's a first round talent but has some injury concerns, Dylan Radins, Wyatt Davis, Samuel Cosme. The list goes on. You can get all those guys in the second round. So
can you get Frank a job at Pro Football Focus too?
So anyways, that's why I want to hear your take on the O-lineman. Like Bengals aside here, I feel like we have incredibly high-end talent, but we also have incredible depth.
Well, I the only thing I'll say is I think you can say the same thing about receivers too.
Okay.
So like I think you can go either way with both these positions. They're both super deep in this class. I think The thing with offensive line play, so I kind of think they should just go Sewell and just like, that's it. Just there's your tackle for 10 years, and that's it. The thing with offensive line play is that there's 5 of them, and the defense can control who they attack, right? If you have one tackle that's better than the other, well, they're going to play their best defensive end on that shitty tackle. Like the defense can control that. So what you need to do, and this is a very PFF line, our company line, is you got to go make sure that your 5 are above average. You can't have a situation where, hey, you could get Sewell, you're great, but everyone else sucks and you have no one to throw the football to. Mm-hmm. So that's why the PFF people have leaned to them taking a receiver, and Jamar Chase is the best one on our boards, especially since we assume Kyle Pitts will go 4th to Atlanta. I guess we can assume that. So that's why we've always said, hey, go take the receiver and then go take, like you're saying, one of these guys in the second round, whether it's Tevin Jenkins. I think for me at that pick would be great for them. If any of the other guys slip down, Walker Little would be interesting. The guy at Stanford, any of the guys you named, Alex Leatherwood is great too. So I think, any of those guys would be very interesting in the second round. And then you can start building your own, because they did spend some money. Like you said, Quentin Spain came in halfway through the year. They got Riley Reif. Jordan Williams is still pretty young. They got rid of Bobby Hart, which is a
good move.
Which is addition by subtraction. So they should be better on the offensive line if they go out and get a second round player. But I think you have more. I probably would say there's a higher chance that Sewell is not a bust compared to any other players they could pick at 5. That would be my thing. I just think I like him. I just like him. Super athlete, super technical, dominated at 19 years old. Now, the Pac-12 didn't have any great edge rushers, but still, he absolutely he did what you're supposed to do against bad players and just erased them.
That's the thing, That's why people have Slater like so much high. Sewell so much higher than Slater's, because on draft day, Sewell's going to be 20 years old. Slater's going to be 22. Yeah. That's a big deal for some scouts out there. And then you look at teams who also need O-line, like the Chargers, who are it's weird. It's going to be a chain of events, because the draft really starts at like 4 or 5.
Yeah,
basically, it starts at 4, because you don't even know what we said. We assume Kyle Pitts, but it could be Sewell. It could be a quarterback. I mean, it could be. We just don't know. But anyways, that I really enjoy the O-line depth in this year's draft. Obviously, the wide receivers after Chase, you got Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, Terrace Marshall, your boy Seth Terrace Marshall, who had he produced still in a year that without Joe Burrow. Man, there's so many players to go through. It's an incredible draft.
I just want to ask about one player, Kyle Pitts. You just kind of mentioned him here. Is Kyle Pitts worth a top 5 pick for you? I know he was really good in college at Florida. He doesn't drop the ball. Is he worth a top 5 pick?
I think so. I think you mentioned some of those receivers. So there's a group of like the big 5 pass catchers. So it's Pitts, Chase, and then you have Devonta Smith and you have Jalen Waddle. And then I would even add the Minnesota receiver Rashad Bateman into that, maybe at the end of that group. Mm-hmm. So you have this group of 5 receivers. And my take on the receivers, the pass catchers, is that I like them all. I really like them all. And we don't know who's going to pan out in the NFL, right? Let's assume 2 out of the 4. That's probably the hit rate there. It's probably closer to 1 out of the 4 actually end up panning out in the NFL. But let's say it's 2. So whoever gets the guy who drops to 12, let's say the Giants take like Waddle at 12, the Eagles, maybe Devonta Smith or something at 11 or 12. I don't remember the order there, but so whoever like drops out of the top 10, you're getting unbelievable value for a guy who is an electric player, whoever ends up being there. With that said, Kyle Pitts seems like the most sure thing in the draft.
Yep.
Wow. You know what I mean? Like, again, it's, we shouldn't talk like this because it's too much hubris and we don't know anything about the draft. Like we were wrong all the time. It's a crapshoot. It's a crapshoot. It just feels like Kyle Pitts, man. You line him up anywhere. He's a bad matchup inside when you're going to put a linebacker on him. You can't put a linebacker on him. You got to put a safety. You got to put a slot corner on him. And he's too big for those guys. A lot of these slot corners are smaller players. So you put your number one corner on him, like that's tough, man. The NFL teams don't want to do that. So I think to me he's the best pick of the bunch there, and that's why, again, going back to what you're saying, like, that's why we assume, because Atlanta extended Matt Ryan, we assume they're trying to keep that Matt Ryan window open. Picking a defensive player is not going to change their outcome next year. The offense has actually not been good for the past 2 years under Dirk Cutter. So, hey, you know what? Let's go and get this dynamite pass catcher, pair him with Julio, pair him with Matt Ryan, pair him with Calvin Ridley. And
provided they don't trade Julio.
Dude, them extending Matt Ryan and then trading Julio would be the most backwards thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, that would just
very Atlanta Falcons,
sense.
really.
It would be very Atlanta Falcons. I'm into it. Don't get me wrong. I would love that. But I don't think it's.
They're cash strapped, though. That's the problem.
They have. I'm going to be wrong about this because my friend told me the other day, and I don't remember the number. They have like 24 players under contract right now. That's bad. It's bad, and they're right up against the cap. Like, it's not good. So they're in such a bad situation. Dimitrov left them. He left the new guy Fontenot in such a bad place. But there's some high end talent there at least.
So, Seth, just before we get to our kind of end of the show, what we usually do with guests is give you 5 quick questions. You give us your straight answer right out of the gate. No thinking. Not a lot of thinking needed. But just before we get to that,
I don't do a lot of thinking in general, so it shouldn't
excellent.
Be too
so
hard.
You'll be the prime candidate for this.
You'll be fine.
Yes. I just want to get your feedback on the corners because, like we've been talking about, almost every position we've covered today, it's incredibly deep. Well, obviously quarterbacks is very top heavy, but for wide receivers, O-line, I want to talk about the corners. Patrick Surtain, Caleb Farley, J.C. Horn, Greg Newsome. Greg Newsome, by the way, your colleague, Mike Renner, says he has the best feet and lateral movement in the entire class. The quick movement from in man coverage, press coverage, very quick footed. Who's a guy that stands out for you out of all these? Who's your clear cut number one corner in this year's draft?
First of all, shout out Benjamin Saint-Just.
Yes.
Vieux Montreal, who will be picked in the 2nd or 3rd round. So shout out to him. I don't want to say that I coached Ben because I didn't coach the DBs, but 2016 Cégep de Vieux-Montréal was a quarterback coach. I don't think we said one word to each other because I don't talk to defensive players. Okay. No, I had a lot on my plate with the quarterbacks that year.
Okay. Anyways, we get it.
The point point out he might be one of the highest Canadians ever drafted, honestly, and maybe probably the highest player from Montreal ever drafted, I would imagine. So
Tim Biakabukta, I think, was like a top 10 pick out of Vanier, if memory serves. I feel like Pete Yiannopoulos would get at me for that. Word to him from LDS. He's always big on bigging up Montrealers whenever they do big outside of hockey. So,
Seth, your take on the corners.
I want to talk about Tim Biakabukta for a second.
Yes.
Well, the only thing is so I think that, Vanier College, obviously, and then University of Michigan, which is where Ben Saint-Just played at first before transferring to Minnesota. Well, I coached when I coached at Vanier, I coached with some people who played with Tim. And the what they say about him is just he's the most magical player that ever lived. And honestly, considering that level, Division I CJEF football, and then a player going to the NFL and being a star in the NFL for a couple of years, you can imagine how good he was at Vanier. So I just wanted to put that in there. Tim, Vanier legend, Montreal legend. All right, so
Tim Biakabukta, yes.
I think he owns a bunch of Bojangles in Carolina now. That's what I heard. Anyways, that's what I heard. The
quarterbacks.
So I think the cornerbacks are interesting. The 4 that I know the most of: J.C. Horn, South Carolina; Patrick Surtain, Alabama; Asante Samuel, Florida State; and Caleb Farley, Virginia Tech. I think those are probably the 4 that you're going to get in the first round. Like you said, Greg Newsome could get up there.
Tyson Campbell.
Maybe Tyson Campbell could get up there. So the 4 that I know the most, I think it's interesting because they're in 2 groups. you have the J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain, press you out the game type of players. And what I mean by that is, well, what I mean by that is pretty simple. They're gonna press man, and they're gonna eliminate the receiver. So they are going to tell the quarterback, don't even look at this receiver. He's not part of your progression because I am covering him, and he's not getting open. With the other two, Farley and Asante Samuel, especially Asante Samuel, they're like, hey, look, quarterback, there's a receiver right there. Look at how open he is. You should definitely throw the football to this receiver who is open. And then they throw it, and then he jumps the ball. He jumps the route. They bait him, and they're making great plays on the ball. So it's interesting to see which type of player you want. Now, I do think the best of the bunch is Surtain. So, like a lot of people are talking about the Cowboys taking him at number 10. Mm-hmm. That would be a really pretty good pick for them. He's a smooth athlete. He doesn't get beat, doesn't get burned, good recovery. And like I said, great press skills. The difference between him and J.C. Horn, who also has good press skills, is Horn can pretty much only play press. If you take him in the first round, you're saying we believe he can learn how to play the game from off positions, but he is a dynamite press cornerback. And with Surtain, he is a dynamite press cornerback, but also you find him at different other positions playing the game at a high level. So that's my kind of take on the quarterbacks.
Find J.C. Horn is very physical. I find him to be
unbelievably physical. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's why he's so good at that press stuff. And when he's off, he's a little lost. But if you get him on a team that's going to play a lot of press coverage, New England Patriots at 15, maybe that's a little too high for him. But that would be ideal. Miami Dolphins at 18 would be interesting for him. So all these press teams that you see a little bit in the NFL now, those are the teams that would do very well with J.C. Horn.
Still really bewildered at the fact that we're talking about Patrick Surtain and Asante Samuel, sons of some NFL stars. I don't remember seeing Patrick Surtain play, but I definitely remember watching Asante Samuel play.
I know you also watched J.C. Horn's dad play, a certain New Orleans Saints receiver. So there's three of them.
Yeah, Joe Horn?
3 of them.
Oh, wow. Man.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We are washed and old.
We are washed.
In a couple of years, we'll be talking about Frank Gore's kid.
Yeah, well, I mean,
the next year, after.
Yeah,
they're gonna be driving each other to the practice facility.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So normally with our guests, we have them do kind of like a rapid fire. What's the first thing that comes to your head? We've kind of made the questions we'll pose to you a little longer, as opposed to just like what's the first thing that'll come to your head when we mention this thing. So we have 5 for you. Here's the first thing we'll ask you: is it easier to scheme wide receivers into a situation for them to succeed than it is to do the same for an offensive lineman?
No, offensive line easier just because there's less things to do. Like if you can just like take a kick step and block a guy, like you're good. Yeah, and then with the running game, you can find a way to put him on the backside of runs. You know what I mean? If he's a guy who you don't want to pull, you don't do it. You know what I mean? You don't pull him. That's it. That's what it comes down to. Obviously, you have to be able to do something. Like you got to be able to be a good zone blocker. You got to be able to pull or something. But you can find a way to hide a guy in the run game. And then schematically in the passing game for an offensive lineman, look, you block the guy. Like that's it. There's not a lot. This technique is different, but the scheme is the same. And then for receivers, I think so. So yeah, I think the answer is offensive line there.
Okay. I feel like we had that question in just to really make Seth seem really smart.
I know I sounded very smart there.
Yes,
I thought that was pretty good.
Next 4 questions.
I don't know about that. Would you be more shocked by Mac Jones going 3rd overall or by Justin Fields not being taken in the top 5?
Justin Fields not being taken. Like I said, I think he's one of the best quarterbacks to come out the last 10 years. So for him to drop all the way past 5, and him dropping past 5 means he's the 4th quarterback off the board in this draft. So I think that's crazy. And like people, the flip side with Mac Jones is like people see themselves in Mac Jones. People see not an athletic guy who made a lot of, throws the ball really well, quote unquote, good mental processor. People see themselves in that, and the people who make the decisions in the NFL look like Mac Jones, and like they see like I don't know maybe I'm going on a
no. Keep going. That's very important what you just said.
They see themselves in the Mac Jones. They see themselves a bit in Zach. It's like Mac Jones is who these decision makers think they are, and Zach Wilson is who they think they can be. Like if they're thinking of themselves as quarterbacks, they don't see themselves in Justin Fields or Trey Lance, and that's obviously a problem. And it's got it to me. I don't know. I just don't know any reason why Justin Fields would fall that far. And we saw it throughout the draft cycle this year when people insulted his intelligence on a football field, and that's something we've done with black quarterbacks for 50 fucking years, and we're doing it again. And I don't see it because he's as smart, if not smarter, than all the other guys in this class. So, yeah, I think that's why going back to your question, it doesn't surprise me that people like Mac Jones, because he looks like the quarterback. He looks like the quarterback that's in the Hall of Fame. He looks like the quarterback that's in the Pro Bowl roster every year.
One thing to add to that question is that we said, would you be shocked if he falls, out of the top 5? You can easily say, like, you could argue that he could even fall out of the top 10 if he's not picked in the top 4, because then you got Cincinnati, who doesn't need a quarterback. Miami doesn't need a quarterback. Detroit just got Goff. Yeah. Jury's still out if Carolina feels like they're good with Sammy D. Then Denver,
they traded a lot for Sam Darnold.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like that would be like, nothing wrong with getting another quarterback, I guess, but wow, to trade all that for Sam Darnold and you had another young guy in the mix, that's quite interesting.
And then so after Carolina, you've got, who knows if the brass in Denver feels like Drew Lock is the guy. He's out at 9, 10. The Cowboys have their guy.
Cowboys aren't doing it.
Yeah. The Giants have Daniel Jones. It could be obviously.
You think?
We're not saying this is. I don't think this is going to happen because someone will trade up if they sense that he's falling this hard. But just to continue this argument a little further,
You don't think the Giants? We look at the Broncos and how they feel about Drew Lock. You don't think the Giants would look at their quarterbacking situation and feel the same about Daniel Jones?
I think the Giants feel better about their quarterback situation than the Broncos.
Oh, that's no doubt.
So that's why. So I think if Fields. Look, who knows what Patton and Elway are thinking in Denver. Locke has not played. First of all, Locke was a second-round pick. He wasn't a top pick, so it's not like, we're waiting for him to finally produce like he did in college or blah, blah, blah. Like, look like the top 5 overall pick. He wasn't. So that's why I'm like, you could move on from him a lot more, emotionally. You can move on from him, I think, a lot easier. That's why I don't think he gets past. Man, if he gets past, like I said, if he gets into 10 range, oh my god,
it's a steal for whoever.
It's an indictment on decision making in the NFL.
Okay, so we have 3 more questions listed, but I'm just going to give you an advance warning now. I'm going to add a bonus question here. So the next question we're going to ask you, and this is to a position group we didn't really talk about in our chat with you, favorite running back in this draft class.
So first of all, look, none of them are going to get picked. None of them should get picked in the first round, but you can probably find a guy in the second, third round. And look, James Robinson was a UDFA, and I think he led the league in rushing last year, like 3rd or 4th, something like that. Like, you'll find a guy later in the draft, but I think running backs are still fun players, and I still like them. I don't hate running backs. But so to answer your question, Najee Harris, love him. I love the big back who can catch out of the backfield, who has that jump cut ability. There's a play against Auburn where he's in the hole, and all of a sudden he's not in the hole anymore because he just laterally, he did like a lateral broad jump, like 8 feet to one side. So to him, he's my favorite. I think he can block a bit. Javonte Williams is a break tackle guy, breaking tackles in a myriad of different ways. Travis Etienne, home run hitter, can't block a lick.
Love Travis Etienne.
Doesn't matter because you just don't put him on the field on 3rd down, and that's fine. Home run hitter. A little impatient as a runner, I found.
Trey Sermon is in discussion for.
I like Trey Sermon as like, hey,
state back.
4th, 5th round pick, 6th round pick, something like that. Really good player. That's obviously where you get your value at running back is 3rd round or later. But someone like last year, someone's probably going to pick a guy in the 1st round. So
could very well be the Steelers. But anyways, I mean, Najee's your guy. Najee could be that pick at the number 24. But Julian, what's next?
I also just want to add this about Najee. I randomly heard him on the Adam Schefter podcast, and he was a delightful interview. He was full of personality. Seems like a really great kid. I'm rooting for Najee Harris, which is not something I would normally say about anyone from Alabama. I don't necessarily root for that school. Next question for you, which, funny enough, we're asking this as a question. Your biggest question mark of the NFL draft?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, we kind of talked about the obviously San Francisco at 3, and then the draft kind of beginning at Atlanta at 4, and what they do and how they feel about their quarterback situation with the extension they just gave to Matt Ryan. I mean, obviously as a Saints fan, curious to see what they do. I mean, we don't know who's going to be on the board at that time, so it's kind of almost fruitless to think of who they might pick and who they're into at that pick. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I can't think of anything. Those are probably the big Cincinnati, probably the best actually. I mean, the biggest question mark is Cincinnati.
Could be.
Yeah. And then we'll see. Hey, if they don't take Sewell, maybe Sewell falls a bit. That would be interesting. How teams think about Rashad Bateman. Is he a top 15 pick like I think, or is he a second round pick like a lot of other people think? That would be interesting. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff like that. Who's going to trade up back into the first round? Or maybe not even just trade up back in the first round, but who's going to take their Jordan Love? You know, who's going to take a quarterback in the 20 range, in the high second round range? Like, it's Kyle Trask. Someone going to fall in love with Kyle Trask after all the other quarterbacks are. And I swear, if it's the New Orleans Saints, I'm going to be so angry. Yeah, maybe it's Kellen Mond. I don't know. But yeah, those are a bunch of questions. I don't know what the biggest one is. Probably Cincinnati, though.
Okay, one more question and then a bonus question for you. Here's the actual question. Your most underrated prospect in this year's draft is?
Well, it came out today. We had our underrated sleeper guys, I guess, and I picked Ben St-Juste. The other guy I like this is a late round pick probably because he didn't test very well and his 2020 season was not very good. But Marvin Wilson, defensive tackle out of Florida State, had a great 2019 season, great 2019 season, and then it just disappeared in 2020. And then, like I said, his pro day was not very good, didn't run very well. If the 2019 version of Marvin Wilson comes to fruition, you're getting a great 3 tech in the NFL. So he's my underrated player.
All right, cool. So here's the bonus question for you. How will you be watching this year's NFL draft? What's the draft setup like? What are you just going to be alone in your basement or whatever, just by a computer or snacks? Like, give us the whole experience, the Seth Galina experience of watching the NFL draft.
We wish we could have been on a terrace together.
I think that would have just been a perfect way to watch the draft. All 3 of us.
I'm working.
That should be a 2022.
Oh, he's working. Sorry, Julian. He can't do it.
I can't, dude. I gotta write stuff the whole night.
Who cares? Yeah. Who cares? We'll just right around you.
Okay, sure. I'll bring my laptop to wherever we're going next year. But yeah, that's I'm in the basement, or maybe I'm at the desk here and I'm just writing. We're doing it in like 10 pick chunks. So like there's 3 of us. So I have to say PFF.com. And then the Pro Football Focus YouTube channel, the draft show, Collinsworth, Mike Renner, Darius Butler is going to be there, former NFL cornerback. So highly recommend checking that out. I think it's going to be better than the ESPN, the NFL Network stuff that goes on during the draft. So that's what I'm going to be watching, and I'm writing.
Wait. Excuse me. Yeah. I kind of tuned out there. They're live streaming the draft, and they're having their own panel on YouTube.
Yeah.
Is that what you?
Yep.
So you're going to be seeing a live feed of the draft, and then they'll have their commentary, or just their commentary?
No, it's going to be or just them. It's going to be them in the studio because we don't have the rights to
gotcha.
all that stuff.
But at least you're going to be eating, right? You're not just going to be writing for like 4 hours and not eat something. You're getting pizza. You're getting nachos.
I had pizza. I ordered Domino's yesterday, so I'm.
Hey.
So we'll see. But yeah, I'll probably order something on Thursday night, and then Friday night, and then Saturday all day. So yeah, maybe I will be a lot of chicken wings and pizza, and I used to really like. So random. We used to really like that chicken and bacon focaccia from Mike's. I don't know if you ever had that one.
Never
had it from Mike's. No.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't think I've ever had Mike's ever.
Me neither.
Well, you
Maybe
can't go into
pizza,
mic. You're Italian. You can't go into mics and be like,
what are you talking about, Obi? I don't know. I don't know. That's why
like,
is it's sacrilegious?
Well, if you, it's like you can't go eat at like a chain Italian
my
restaurant.
grandmother.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like we learned a lot about NFL draft prospects today. I think we learned a lot about how Seth spends his time and what he eats for about 4 or 5 days of the week. And I hope everyone who was listening on the Waterboys podcast was as entertained as Frank and I were. Seth, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Of course, this will not be your last time on the show. We love you too much. Especially Frank over here. He has nicknames for you and everything like that. So, dude, thanks so much again for hopping on. Enjoy the draft. Good luck with all the writing for Pro Football Focus. Hopefully, we get to meet Chris Collinsworth the same day you do.
Yeah, that was exactly. When I meet him, you guys can meet him. I'll live stream it for you guys.
Perfect.
Let's do it.
Take care, man.
Seth Galina of Pro Football Focus.